totally had no
5,
mic.
4, 3, 2, 1. I'm John Miglash for the Wisconsin TMA and the International Society for Strategic Marketing, which is Uber Eats. I think it's funny.
Tonight, I'll be eating a veggie cheeseburger on ciabatta. No tomatoes.
No tomato.
Tonight, I'll be eating 4 cheese tortellini with extra tomatoes.
Tomatoes.
So it's come to this. Thank you.
Bravo.
Careful, Hamill. Daddy's not here to save you.
Oh, I am my daddy. Wait, what?
What are you talking about?
Oops. I like that. Good morning, Keith. Look at that. 66 super hearts. I got the new chat working. I tried to do it yesterday, and I can see you're on Periscope. This is so cool. I can see comments where they come from, Facebook or Twitch or LinkedIn or Periscope. I can see the whole banana. It is spectacular. I've spent hours on this, of course. It's not really worth it, but nevertheless, it is so fun. So keep commenting, and I will try to keep an eye on that. But let's get over to the rest of the world. Yeah, there you go. I see another one. Okay, the Department of Justice, and I just want to start out by saying I got some comments a couple of weeks ago or a week or two ago about that I touched on some topics that were political and I should be banned from LinkedIn. I just want you to, we're going to start with that, okay? That somebody said that the topic I chose should be prohibited. Now, a couple of points. One was, everything I post, virtually everything I post, is from some media site, some marketing site, some site that you might go to, but there might be 100 articles. So I pick what I think are the best. There, I see you on LinkedIn, Keith. I pick what I think are the best, and I summarize them. And sometimes I pick things you probably wouldn't see. I almost always try to. Okay, that's a thing for me. So today I want to talk about the Department of Justice that's modifying Section 23. Now, if you don't know what Section 23 is, 230, you should know. Because when the internet started, way back in the day, there were little sites that came up. Like we had a whitetail.com site, and it had a beautiful, robust bulletin board, thousands of comments, and people would write the craziest stuff, okay? And I just let it go pretty much as is. And so Section 230 said that the website isn't liable for bad speech. Let's just call it bad. Let's call it stuff somebody might object to. Not necessarily, if it's pornographic or if it's, there's some categories that don't come under the First Amendment, but let's just say if you might object to it, but I'd leave it up. I don't remember anything really objectionable. One of the best threads was on whether you should pee on scrapes. Now, for those of you not deer hunters, that won't mean a thing to you, but it was a very, very entertaining thread. And so we would leave them up. And, it was a lot of fun. And what Section 230 did was it protected whitetail.com from being held liable should anybody have said, well, in fact, we had a section on a guy who'd shot supposedly world record deer, but it kind of looked like the deer had antlers coming out like straight from the side of their head, like a kid drew the picture, not at all like a real deer, and it almost looked like they'd fabricated the deer head to make it the world's largest measured antler set. And so we had actually a real bona fide world-class expert on whitetail antlers who sold his collection to Bass Pro Shops for something like $2 million. He said, my wife used to give me a lot of grief about collecting these antlers. She's okay with it now. My friend Larry Huffman is a great guy. Anyway, so So Larry wrote this big post, and I put it up about whether this guy was fake or not. And Larry was convinced he was completely fake. But a lot of people said, no, I'm from this area, and he shoots a lot of deer. And then other people would write in, no, he uses electric batteries for shining deer at night up in his tree stand. Anyway, like car batteries. He's got a car battery up in the tree stand. Anyway, whitetail.com was protected on all that. Okay? That's what Section 230 meant. I can't get sued for leaving crazy stuff. In fact, Larry's wife asked me if Larry could get in trouble, if that was, slanderous toward this guy. And I said, no, Larry can't get in trouble, and I can't get in trouble, I don't think. Plus, Larry had a lot of money, and this guy didn't have any money. But anyway, so that's what it's kind of for. Now, there's been a lot of comment across the world, and I think it may actually be user-based. It may not have anything to do with Twitter and Twitter's algorithm. But there is, there on both sides, left and right, there's feeling that Twitter is blocking or removing their favorite people. And, lately Twitter said they removed like 7,000 people related to this Q thing, whatever it's called. It's not. I don't think it's really an organized group, but it's, and I don't think there's much real harm in it either. But Twitter decided to remove it, and so that one we have legit, and I talked about it a couple of weeks ago. But the left says they're getting removed too. Now, I think James Wood had a post that said, if we object to posts, where we say this is objectionable content, to posts, he said, on the left, then we will be doing what they're doing to the right. That apparently, and I don't know if this is true, you can search for a hashtag and you can hit, block, objectionable, and that, remove this guy. And that's what was really happening. And it may well be. Even, I don't even think Twitter knows what exactly is going on with their, that's one of the challenges with machine learning and AI. Anyway, so the Department of Justice rules. Well, let's go on. So I got this letter yesterday from Gab, and from the president of Gab. I have joined Gab. I don't particularly like the interface. I can't quite figure it out. But I join things before they're big so that I get the name I want. And, LinkedIn, I've been here since 2005, I think. There was 50,000 people. I got a letter once saying I was one of the first people ever to join LinkedIn. So the president here of Gab says this is a bad thing. They're going to water down Section 230, and it will harm alternative technology startups like Gab. And he says, in a free country, a corporation should be free to be biased. I agree with that. I really do. If Twitter said, we don't want any conservatives on Twitter, if they came out and said it, just, other than this weird algorithm stuff that they hide behind, it's their right to do, it seems to me. And other ones will say, well, we don't want any left-wing radicals on our site, whatever that means. I don't even know. These labels have almost no meaning anymore. So Apple censors music to comply with Chinese communists. Twitter lets Pakistan tell it what users around the world, including Americans, can and can't say. Gab is biased toward American law and freedom. Okay, that's their perspective. Section 230 says nothing about political neutrality, and for good reason. So what the president says is that what's interesting is that both sides of the aisle, Democrats and Republicans, want to better control the internet. They want to control it. That's one thing for sure. And removing some of those protections, companies that act in good faith to remove content they themselves find objectionable, whether or not that content is constitutionally protected, are shielded from being held liable. That's the way it works now. But if you don't like what big tech has to say, if you don't like their community guidelines, if you don't like their moderation choices, the solution is to get on Gab, he says. But by taking away the protections of Gab, you're going to make it so we can't start up against the big tech giants. Okay? Apple and Google have a duopoly on mobile app distribution and a 98% market share. That's where their focus should be. All big tech companies, media elites, and members of Congress agree, or whatever, believe that every user of the internet must be subject to aggressive content moderation, which in our experience, users hate. Okay. So anyway, I went back and looked at this a little bit, looked at the actual addendums, and it's really not so much about the content. The platform can delete content, can suppress content, but what they can't do is just knock users off. Now, there's so many tools available. I'm not sure that this is really going to help, but it seems to me that if you get knocked off a platform for mentioning some word like Amazon was blocking that bug, the water bear bug name, because some company in Cyprus was money laundering and PayPal wouldn't process your orders and all kinds of stuff. If that happens, it seems like there should be some recourse. And I do think tech companies are hiding behind that. So the last article is, are we heading towards a Splinternet? And this was a really good article. Let's see if I've got the highlights. Oops, I didn't upload my highlights. But at the end, it said, what happens next? If Donald Trump is reelected, there may be antitrust. Antitrust was what Gab was calling for. More antitrust, less watering down of Section 230. Now, publishers, newspapers, TV, because they use publishers because it's tradition, there are some laws, libel and such. And also with broadcasters, because they use the public airwaves, they have obligations to be fair and balanced, and they have, to some level, and they have to prove, if they want to, slander somebody, they have to prove that they're a public figure, or that what they said was true, or that they didn't mean it. That's a big cover. That's getting to be less helpful for them. The internet has been like a free ride with Section 230. And so I do believe that someone whose life has been ruined, maybe by the platform itself, if you object to this talk, which is, I think, perfectly balanced, then and say to Microsoft, you need to regulate content on LinkedIn. I could lose countless hours of effort that I've tried to benefit LinkedIn, benefit people who connect with me on LinkedIn, talk about difficult issues that affect marketing. Okay? But anyway, so if Donald Trump gets reelected, there may be some antitrust. There may be some action against big tech. That's one thing that's interesting, is that while both sides of the aisle are interested in controlling content, I think Trump does seem to be interested in controlling big tech and the media. I'm not sure. Who knows what he's thinking? But they also said if Joe Biden is elected, then it's probably going to be less aggressive action against Chinese firms, etc. What this article basically said was that most countries don't have this view of free speech. Most countries, even UK, doesn't have a Bill of Rights. And so most countries want to limit access. And China actively does limit what Google can do or what Twitter can do. And WeChat, sprung up because of that, because that was done within the limits of China. And now it's leaked out. So this guy says, okay, Kamala Harris would be benign to tech firms, Joe and Kamala. but more action is probably coming, he said. Okay. Politicization of tech will continue to grow. Both China and Russia have imposed severe limits on foreign, mainly U.S. tech players. They're already limiting it. So when you object to Trump or the Department of Justice or whoever's doing it, limiting WeChat or limiting where the data can be held for TikTok, you have to understand that we're already being limited in China. And so the author says this will only grow. U.S. companies are less risky. So what's happening is we're getting this play to say, well, if I have to pick TikTok over Twitter, Twitter at least is a little more transparent with the algorithm, whereas TikTok says they have it and it affects children, but they won't tell us what it is. So, nobody wants to get in a trade war with the U.S. So expect Europe's response to be more based around fines because, they need the money. Tech will be helped by the coronavirus outbreak. Okay, so the sudden imposition of national borders will affect tech. But tech has stepped up to the plate to ensure the economic system did not buckle, video conferencing to enable home working, cloud data storage, etc. Therefore, tech is likely to get a reprieve because politicians will be wary of impacting a sector that has helped cushion the blow. Okay? But regulation, and this is the really important point, regulation favors incumbents. The people in power make the rules. That's what's so interesting about regulation of data not affecting mail. Why? Because the Postal Service is the incumbent, and the Postal Service generates revenue for countries. So they're less likely to be majorly controlled than these companies because, the countries are realizing that these big tech companies don't really contribute much revenue and are very difficult to keep an eye on and may not build community in the country. They build community. They may make it more accessible. Brian, my friend Brian on LinkedIn, helps people immigrate to Canada. So he's taking your talent pool out of your maybe third world country where they could really be helpful. The internet helps that happen. So the history of tech and media shows the lesson of time and time again that incumbents favor regulation when they start to dominate the market. So, somebody called. Yeah, unknown caller is right. So, what does that all tell you? Let's boil it down. It says that your business can be affected by these laws, that marketing is affected by who gets on what platform, that there may be a splintering, this universal advertising world that we live in with tracking and cookies is breaking up. So prepare for it. Start thinking in terms of particular titles that your market would be interested in, particular sites that they like to visit. Start thinking about working with those sites, developing a partnership. That's what we used to do back in the 80s when we had to rent lists. You could even pick up the phone and say, hey, I'd like to rent your list. And they'd say, nobody's ever done that before. Well, let's work together. It does work. It may be our solution for the future. Have a great day. Like and share. Your friends will think you're smart. Bye-bye.